Hi everyone, this is Dr. Nagehan Uzuner from Istanbul Bilgi University. I would like to share my title for today's session. It is Foucauldian Gaze Over Prostate Cancerhood in Newspapers in Turkey. So I would like to start with introduction and the objectives of my study. Despite many technological advances in medicine throughout history, cancer is leading a cause of death worldwide. So cancer is conducive to an estimated 10 million deaths in 2020, or we can also say nearly 1 in 6 deaths. As we know from the media reports, various debates reveal the cancer problem and offer an accurate cure. Also, military terms are often used in daily lives of societies to describe cancer, and military language is frequently used in media as well. War metaphors can have a negative effect, according to a study of Hauser and Schwartz, on how people think about cancer. These negative thoughts are likely to undermine the intention of people to engage in healthy behaviors. Moreover, the metaphors and discourses of cancer, which appear as psychosocial barriers, hinder the struggle of the disease in daily life of cancer survivors. Today, media and cancer survivors try to formulate different debates within the scope of gender, body image perception, representation of prostate cancer, and biopolitics. In terms of communication theories, we try to understand and interpret the relationship between discourses of cancer of newspapers and survivors with this research. Our aim is to explore the social and cultural dynamics of the cancer discourses in media, which helps to determine the context with the attitude towards cancer. So let's look over briefly the literature review part of the study. Foucault proposes a new understanding of disease pathology and suffering conceptions. Since the Epic of Gilgamesh, diseases and disasters are encoded as punishment given by God to humanity. Thus, diseases are not limited to the features that nosology classifies them, but they continue to be re-identified with the metaphors attributed to them. So let's look over briefly how we can come to the modern medicine's birth time. So I think I would like to mention that the significant developments in medicine and pathology start with Renaissance. And after that, anatomy studies in the 16th century, and it continues with the development of the microscopes in the 17th century, and the autopsy studies in 18th, and then the pathology, the sense of the pathology in the 19th century. And we can describe it as the birth of modern medicine is occurred in the late 18th century, according to Foucault. And new conditions are created with the effects of medicine, which gains a new objectivity and a mandatory character. Again, in here, he underlines the relationship between disease and health begins to be expressed more sharply till then. And medicine has a new standardization principle, which are also represented in the concept of modern health and modern approaches of the treatments. Previous studies have shown that the media has a great impact on people's attitudes and discourses on health and cancer. According to Dowling, previous studies of Dowling's also show that there's a stigmatization in statements. Prostate cancer is the most common cancer among men, according to American Cancer Society. So the cancer discourse seeks the possibility of reconciliation and agreement in the partnerships. And briefly, let's look over the cancer and the diseases from the ancient Greece time till today. Tuberculosis was a symbol of melancholy from ancient Greece to the present times. But also, cancer needs to be explained by analogies, for instance, as noted by the surgeons, that is the king of all maladies itself. So the political ideologies are interested in the absence of health. The rates of birth, death, and diseases are the prerequisites for directing and managing life. Societies are managed through punishment and surveillance. And in normalization practices through various disciplines. The body itself is the main focal point of political and ideological control and surveillance and regulation. Biopolitics focuses on the survival of the body, which is based on prolonging life and investing in life. And also, I would like to mention from the literature part, womanhood is a general term for all the traits, behaviors, and roles associated with women and girls, and is fed by societal norms in addition to biological factors of it. The reason why there are many gender studies focusing on women and femininity is that women are positioning as others and victims in societies, according to Simone de Beauvoir. While Earhart puts men is constructed as brave, strong, aggressive, ambitious, and settled through patriarchal structures. And manhood, which is not widely addressed by social sciences, is accepted as a natural and normative reality. And the roles of being men and masculinity are cultivated by society too. Dominant masculinity means having a superior position against both women and some of the men. In the Western literature, hegemonic masculinity is expressed in terms of aggression, physical strength, endurance, competition, rationality, control-centric, pragmatic thinking, and heterosexuality. And the practices of becoming and deserving to be a man in Turkey take place with the stages of circumcision, military service, first sexual experience, and a marriage and a fatherhood experiences. And the methodology of the study, after all these research part of the literature and the literature review part, I would like to continue to share with you the methodology of the study. So in here, Foucauldian discourse analysis is the most appropriate way to explore the cancerhood, which is a biopolitical tool in the floating patterns of power. So let's look over this FDA methodology. Foucault shows us how the relationship between a group of expressions within different cultural texts produce the meaning of a particular element known to construct facts and shape life practices. So everything normative in social life is related to power. Basically, the forms of power is divided into three as sovereignty, disciplinary power, and governmentality. Discourses of needs are not produced for a communication function anymore, but also a strategic shaping tool with a political function. Thus, the words that are used in the news, they also shape the way people and events are represented while protecting the intended political interest, according to Machin and Meyer. In order to contribute previous studies here in Turkey, one of is Sezgin study. So to focus on the analysis and explanation of the social and cultural dynamics of the health discourses in the media, newspapers are chosen as one of the sampling groups. In here, methodology is briefly shown in the screen. I would like to mention that the conducting part, the printed data, which is like the 5-year period of time of the newspaper archives, and then it continues with the decoding and coding the printed data part, and then also in-depth interviews designed with the snowball sampling technique with 6 different prostate cancer survivors between June 2020 and January 2023. And also, it continues with the decoding and coding these voice recordings of these in-depth interviews by using also NVivo, which is a qualitative research program. And lately, and analyzing the data part, qualitative research program, again, NVivo is used to code all the data, and all the data is analyzed between March till June 2023. So let's look over briefly the analysis of the data part. Advertorial contents are excluded from the study. All data are read in detail and themes are determined before the qualitative analysis is carried out. And NVIDIA program, again, I mentioned and I underline, is used to code the qualitative analysis in the study. And considering the repetitive similar discourses, the main themes and sub-themes are created, and all the interpretations and the consensus of final form of the themes are shared without making any comments. Direct quotations from the interviews are used, and the Foucauldian discourse analysis used as reporting the data. And the results. In here, you can see the results, like the cancer news. So 106 news stories in 355 total news stories were about cancer. So in general, news stories about cancer are coded into 7 different child codes as COVID-19, sphere of responsibility, raising awareness, hope and support, semantic information, editorial, and factual information. And then there's a division under those child codes, and sphere of responsibility is basically divided into 3 sub-child codes as lifestyle suggestions, preventative, and responsibility. For example, in the newspapers, what kind of foods to eat and how to exercise are often advised to the readers. So these kind of contents are coded under this responsibility part. In the preventative subchild code, taking organic nutrition, consumption of turmeric or cruciferous vegetables, and drinking green tea are given suggestions. And the news about various activities and projects of associations, collaborations with soap operas, raising awareness campaigns, and news stories of remarkable events are coded into raising awareness child code. And I would like to underline here in the color red, you can see in the war subchild code, the concepts of defeating, beating, fighting, attacking, life-threatening, giving up, defense system, enemy, victory of determination are commonly used in newspapers while we are describing cancer in newspapers. So war discourse is the most frequently used discourse among cancer discourses. And let's continue to see the prostate cancer news. Only 47 in 355 news were about cancer, prostate cancer, during this 5 years of newspapers, 5 different newspapers in Turkey. So the news about prostate cancer was very few and limited, and prostate cancer news were coded into 7 child codes as factual information, gendering, hope and support, raising awareness, semantic information, sphere of responsibility, and editorial. Of course, editorial pages were put exempt from the analysis, so due to the exclusion criteria. Whilst the most striking news here is that prostate cancer is seen as a taboo, there is no finding related to aesthetic concerns in prostate cancer news. I can also mention the factual information child code is subdivided into 3 sub-child codes: descriptive, factuality, informative. So the methods of prostate cancer diagnosis are described in detail in this section. Here, detailing, I would like to share with you my some of my results about prostate cancer news. The second subchild code is metaphors. In this section, prostate cancer is defined as a nightmare of men and titled as murder of 6 million in the coded news. So the third subchild code is war. This was very important, actually. And also, I would like to share with you this output, like under the responsibility subchild code, it is stated that men are diagnosed late because they avoid the palpation examination and hide some symptoms just because they are ashamed of their body. And here is the brief results of the study. Discourses of prostate cancer survivors. We had various difficulties reaching the prostate cancer survivors and planning the interviews with them because the survivors didn't want to participate in the research. Reaching the prostate cancer survivors and persuading them to participate in the research was the biggest challenge in the thesis and in the study itself. And we had in-depth interviews with 6 different prostate cancer survivors for almost total of 3 hours. And prostate cancer survivors are somehow invisible in our male-dominated world when our subject becomes to prostate cancer. So men do not want to be perceived as weak. And they get information from conventional media channels as newspapers, radio, television shows, and soap operas. But YouTube and Facebook, so digital communication platforms, supplied some important information for them specifically. They do not assume media as an authority on cancer. They criticize the medicalization of plants, supplements, and certain nutrients and editorials of hospitals and doctors. Participants described lack of content on prostate cancer in media as neglection. The semantic information sub-team drew attention to the common metaphors and war discourses among prostate cancer survivors. And the other results, important results, are those. Stigmatization is one of the important issues in the disease management. Early diagnosis is a climactic, no matter what kind of negative sides it brings about for the others who didn't receive early diagnosis. Manhood occupies the widest place among the discourses, which is divided into 3 categories: homosexuality, loss of infertility, and natural period. So prostate cancer assumed as taboo. Men are hesitant because prostate cancer treatments can reduce sexual functions, and they attach great importance to this in their lives. For these reasons, men do not want this issue to be discussed openly in front of other people or society. So the general attitude of the newspapers towards cancer is limited to 4 sub-themes as capital, disappointing, involution, and romanticism. The purpose of the media is to make money, to get money from advertisers or take advantage of other revenues. And another issue here in Turkey, we have an NGO who works and serves in the cancerhood or cancer needs of people, of society. So LÖSEV, it is called. LÖSEV is accepted as a reference point, which is a well-known NGO here in the country. And some other important outputs here. Prostate cancer survivors do not talk about movies. Prostate cancer survivors frequently make reference to YouTube. Semantic information child code and sub-themes as war and metaphors are common codes, 2 common codes. Prostate cancer survivors assert that cancer-related media contents are published to stimulate the health industry. Taboo, trivialization, popularization, and gendering are appeared as the common statements among prostate cancer survivors. So for prostate cancer survivors, the communication activities of the NGOs are sources that best describe cancerology in general. So let's conclude the session with these. Here are the findings that will be significantly important for understanding the cancerhood and the cancer communication. Newspapers associate cancer with the lifestyle of the individual and utilize the body of individual as a biopolitical tool, claiming that the individual should live in a certain way. And newspapers use war metaphors and war discourses to put cancer in a position to threaten people. And again, the uses of control and regulation of the disease to materialize the power. So newspapers are supplying this. The fear of homosexuality, loss of infertility, and youth and ageness discourses are the yeast of manhood of Turkey. Thanks for listening me today. I'm happy to share my study with you.